Hey everyone. So we got a new Patreon subscriber here, and we're going to be watching his replay. His name is Peruvidor. And something somebody told me in the other video, comment actually, was you should watch the game from the visibility of the player itself, because very easy for me to know exactly what somebody should do if I have a full field of vision, right? Super easy. And that's why, like, when a lot of people, a lot of observers watch games, like casters and stuff, it's really easy for them to point out the player's mistakes. But it's a lot harder to point out somebody's mistakes when you're in his field of view. So that's what we're going to do here. Um, Also, one thing that I'm going to do as well is I'm just going to show you guys this. I think personally, a lot of people message me for coaching. And they're willing to spend 40, 50, sometimes even more than that on coaching for like an hour. But this is so much better use of your funds. If you were to get, and I hate to sound like a salesman here, but for those of you that actually want to improve and become better at the game, in my opinion, replay reviews are way better than getting direct coaching, because when you're playing the game, it's not it's not very easy to play the game at the way you normally play, and then have somebody in your ear telling you do this, do that, do this, do that. In my opinion, that's not the best way to learn. The best way to learn is play your game, reflect on your game, send your game to somebody who's a little bit better than you or a lot better than you, have him give his thoughts, and then reflect on that once more. I'm actually going to do a video on how to improve, probably in the future, but in my opinion, instead of messaging me on Discord asking for direct coaching and willing to pay so much money, and I know even like players that are not even in the top 20 are charging a lot more than this. So this is a much better use of your funds, and it's better for me as well, because then I don't need to schedule around you guys. I don't need to take a part of my day. I actually just review the replay when I get a chance. So hate to sound like a salesman, but I just wanted to bring that up there. And let's just get right into it now, okay? So starting off, the map is Marsh. It's going to be Zeus versus Ra. Now, the first thing that Peruvitor is doing, which I really like, is he's sending his scout to the middle of the map. This is an excellent idea. The reason why this is an excellent idea is all of the most of the time, all of the best relics are in the middle here. And I also noticed that most of the time the pigs are in the middle there too. So it's an excellent idea to do it. Another thing you should keep in mind as well is Ra has you're playing against Ra. Ra has a little bit of downtime before he can scout, right? Because the priest is slow. So the priest is going to start walking in probably at like 45 seconds to a minute. So if you come, take your scout, you scout this and this and this. If there are any pigs there, you're going to be able to get them before your raw player comes in. And then you can go and start scouting the back, right? All of this. So think about that whenever you play your games. What is my opponent going to be doing with scouting? Another example I can give you as well is if you guys are playing against a Thor player, the Thor player is going to be in his base making the Dwarven armory so he can pump out some dwarves. So what you want to do is send your scout forward, scout his side of the map like this. You guys can probably see on the right hand side. And that way, when the Thor player comes out to do his type of scouting, the Thor player is going to do this, right? Let me just show you guys. The Thor player is going to come out, do a little circle, put a house down, and put his temple. But if you get to these areas before he does, then you're going to have all of his picks. Anyways, there's a lot you can talk about when it comes to scouting, but we're not going to waste our time with that. Let's look at this. So once again, you should have gone a little bit more forward, started here, and then gone for a circle, because he's not going to be able to reach the back of your base. He has a priest. It's much slower, right? But this is still a good idea for you. Now you started off with 4 on food, 1 on gold, 1 on wood. It's okay. I do it a little bit differently. I do I do around 4 on food, 2 on gold, and then 1 on wood. But the build orders, in my opinion, don't really matter that much. Oh, you are going back. So good job here by you that you recognize this. But you want to do this first, right? You don't want to do this second, because chances are his priest, if you were playing versus a normal player, would be out on the map already. He went the wrong way. He should have gone forward. But anyways, yeah, you should scout the front first and then go towards the back. But in any case, build orders, like I was saying, is not the biggest deal. I know a lot of players say that, build orders make a huge difference. It does help you when you're playing versus an evenly skilled opponent or whatever, but honestly, like, I think people are giving it too much precedence, right? It's The strategies you have and the decisions you make are what make you win or lose. It's not usually the build order, from my experience. I didn't use a build order in the old version of the game for ages. I would get my TCs late all the time, advance late, and I would still win most of the time. Um, Even in tournaments, I almost never used a build order. So just letting you guys know, I don't think it's a massive deal. It's nice to have. It's a easy way to actually, get a little bit of an edge over your opponent. But if you don't have it, it is what it is. It's not a big deal. I'm not sure what strategy you're going for yet, but I usually don't put three on gold. Sorry, three on the temple. I usually just put one on the temple and I advance. Still, I can advance at 4 minutes, no problem, right? So let's see what you're going for here. You're going for Athena. So this is a little bit strange to me that you're doing this. Remember, you're losing villager working time here, but it's not the end of the world. This is also really bad. Okay, good job there. You recognize your mistake. You're pumping a couple more villagers. Okay, that's why. So you're trying to get some minotaurs out. Okay, and you're switching over to wood. Are you, or are you going for these? Okay, so you're switching over to wood. A little bit of indecision there. I guess you're trying to get a little bit of extra favor, but let's see what you go for right now. I'm not too sure. And when I say that I'm not too sure what you're going for, that's not a good thing, right? Usually. Sometimes it is, but usually it's not, because if you were doing something that was very easy for me to understand, that means usually you were doing the right thing. Because if I knew that, okay, this allocation leads to a second TC, then, then that means that you're on the right track. But if I don't know what you're doing, then usually, sorry, let me rephrase that. There is only a few select strategies that you can do that are optimal. If you're going to go for a second TC, usually you have a certain villager allocation and your opponent's going to know it and you're going to know it because it's very easy to understand. But if you're not, then usually it's generally an imbalance of resource. I'm just trying to figure out what you're trying to do here right now. Okay, so you have... Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to do here, and it's... once again, I'm watching it for the first time as well, and I'm watching in the dark because I want to be in your shoes. I want to see what you're seeing, right? Okay, so you are going for a second TC, I think. It looks like a second TC, but you see how your villager allocation is completely off here? To me, that's kind of what I was trying to say, right? If your villager allocation made sense to me, that means you were doing an optimal build. But I don't think this might not be the most optimal build order. Because look, you have way too much wood now, and you're going to have too much gold as well. So you're going to have too much extra resources. And now you're switching to a military academy. So like, I guess it's because you had the excess wood that you threw this in. So your overall structure right now in terms of villager allocation is a little bit off. I don't think it's a big deal, right? Especially at maybe at the level that you're playing at right now. But as you go up the ladder, you're going to have a lot more trouble, especially when you're building a town center with 2 villagers, right? Your opponent's going to be able to harass you. So the higher up you go, this is not going to work. You're going to need more clear structure when it comes to building your second town center. You don't want to build with 2 villagers. You need at least 6, 5 or 6, especially if you're going to be taking a forward TC, and especially if you don't have ceasefire. So definitely make some more. What I would do in this case is have a perfect build order. Very easy to do. You don't need me to even tell you. Just go on the single player for like 15 minutes. Try to get your town center out without any idle time, without any excess amount of resources. Get the town center out as fast as you possibly can, because the faster you can get this town center, the faster you can start churning out villagers. After you're able to do that, then you throw down your racks if you need to. Once again, I think this is a waste because you won't have the food production if you're going to be doing this. And then if you need to get a second Minotaur, you can. So overall, you need structure in your game, right? Emphasize getting a TC first and then do the rest later on. You should be able to get this at least probably a minute faster. So the reason is, when a top player scouts another top player's base, they immediately know what they're going for. Very rarely that we don't know, because sometimes they do some cheesy strategies, but we know. And the reason that we know is because villager allocation at least at the 5 or 6 minute mark is very easy to understand, right? If somebody has 3 on wood and he's a raw player, then you can say, okay, most likely he went up with like, let's say for example you went up with Bass, then you know, okay, he's going to upgrade his Sphinx and he's going to start raiding me. Or if he's going for Ptah like he did and he has 3 or 4 on wood, we know, okay, he's going for Wadgets, right? You understand immediately by being able to scout the allocation of the opponent's villagers. If I can't see where your allocation is leading to, that means usually it's the wrong allocation. And in this case, I do think it's the wrong allocation. And the reason why is you didn't prioritize what's important. The important thing is getting this up as soon as possible. And I'm just going to reiterate it again. The reason why it's so important that you get this up ASAP is, one, your opponent's not going to be able to harass it. If you get it up too slow, your opponent might be able to make some army, make some villagers, take some villagers and push this down, right? The second thing is making it with 2 villagers takes an eternity. So what does that mean? You're not going to be able to churn out villagers as fast, right? You want the primary purpose of the second town center is to be able to get an economic lead over your opponent by building more villagers. But if your town center is too slow on coming up, then it's going to make it harder for you to get that economic lead, and you're just pushing yourself further and further behind. If you were going to get a late TC like this, then you don't need to advance as fast as you did. You don't need to take 3 villagers and build a temple. It needs to be a very structured opener, right? And notice how I said in the beginning that build orders don't matter. They don't matter unless you're completely off the mark, right? In this case, you're completely off the mark because it's too late of a town center. And it worked in this game, you're okay. But if the more you go up the ladder, the harder it's going to be for you. All right, so let's move on from that point now. My opinion, go into single player, just have a very structured opening, have priorities. Your priority number 1, town center. Priority number 2, if you want to get out the Minotaur, the Minotaur. Priority number 3, if you want to get out the military academy, you have to have priorities and you need to do them as fast as possible, rush them. You don't want to have all 3 priorities at the exact same time. You want to have A, B, and C. You don't want A, B, and C all at the same time. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's carry on. Next thing, you don't really want to get your... Oh, this is a medium spearman. Oh, why am I seeing the wrong person's up? I can see both sides. Okay, that's fine. Now, you need to take your scout, your Catascopos. Very easy. Just go and do a little run by of his base, right? You want to see what he's doing. Because now you're playing in the dark. If he's going for, let's say, a second town center, then you can do a little bit of harassment because you're going to have a little bit of a military advantage early on. So you can walk around, you can attack this, you can walk around, maybe get some shots off on his gold mine. But if he's going for a one town center play, then you need to emphasize walls. You need to get a ton of walls up, especially here. I made a video on this, but this is a very strong value point right here. It's a very cheap wall, and it's going to protect all of these guys. So if your opponent wants to raid this, instead of going for like just straight through right here, he's going to have to take the long way, which is going to go all the way right here, right? So get some walls up if your opponent's on one town center. If he's not on one town center, then you want to move your army forward. You want to attack here because this is an easy point of attack, and his gold mine might be somewhere around here. So definitely take your scout. You need to be scouting because now you're playing in the dark. You're playing in the dark, and I think it's mostly because you're going to be focused on your own strategy. But the higher up you go, you might be able to win at this level with this type of strategy. But the higher up you go, you have to start reacting to what your opponent's doing. You can't just play in your own little bubble, right? Because you have a terrifying army right now. You have 3 Minotaurs, especially if you get the speed upgrade. By the way, it's such a good upgrade. The Labyrinth of Mino. Which takes you up 20% extra speed. You can be raiding with this and causing mayhem in his base. So you can be all over here. You can be here. You can be, even if he has this, if he's on 1 TC, you can still be raiding. So you wanna get that speed upgrade as well, especially if you have 3 Minotaurs. But at the same time, the most important thing is you need to know what he's doing. Okay, I can't emphasize that enough. It's so important to know what your opponent's doing. And then you see this wall is a very expensive wall, right? An alternative to this is instead of making such an expensive wall, you just put 1 scout here and you pick this wall here. It's going to save you a lot of villager time, right? Because this here probably costs, like 70 gold or something, probably even more than that. But this wall here costs like what, 15 gold, 10 gold, and then you just keep a unit positioned here like a Kataskopos, or you can build a Pegasus. Think about this, right? This wall probably gonna, with the villager build time, is gonna cost probably more than 100 resources. You can just build one Pegasus, which is 50 food. Sorry, well, even less actually. I think you got. But anyways, you can build this guy, which is around 50 food and 2 favor. Position him here, and you'll be able to know exactly what your opponent's doing. You won't need to waste this much money on a wall. And then this scout will be able to scout other things too. So it's more value to just get that Pegasus than build such an expensive wall like this. In my opinion, you should have built this wall right here. Okay. So moving on, all of these things I'm saying right now, like the wall stuff, that's not a big deal. The stuff that's a big deal is the prioritization, which is getting your town center up ASAP, prioritize the town center, then you can prioritize other things that you want. The second thing that can lose you games is the lack of scouting. I know at this level, I'm not sure what level it is, maybe 1200, I'm not sure. But at the lower levels, you can get away with bad scouting, right? You can get away with not reacting to your opponent. But if you have aspirations to, get better and improve, then scouting is critical. It's one of the most important, if not the most important skill to have in this game. You need to have scouting. All right, so now moving on, let's see what you're doing. You have a healthy villager allocation at the moment. I like how you have a little bit more on food. You have a good amount of wood. You're spending your money well. So I think those are good things that you're doing. You definitely just need to scout, right? You need to scout. It's so important to scout because think about this, for example. I'm just going to let this play. You spent all of this money on military units, right? You spent like over 1,000 resources on military units alone. Imagine your opponent is sitting in his base and he spent nothing on military. And instead of spending on military, let's just say he spent on his economy. He spent everything on his economy and didn't spend a single dime on his military. Well, then you're going to be behind, right? And if that's the case, then you need to attack. So we're just going to peek in to see what he's actually doing. You can see he has a little bit of a military here, but he has a way better economy right off the bat. So he probably made these military units a little bit later than you. You can see he's still producing Raxes. So he's up to H3. I think he has a better way. This guy has a way better eco, and he's very well. Like whoever he is, he's doing a very good job managing his eco. Look at this, excellent job by him. He's doing a very good job. So the person you're playing is pretty good. So let's see how this ends up. Another thing with scouting, you need to see what he's making, right? You have no idea what he's making, and you're making Toxicate blindly. So if we did see it, right, and I'm just going to peek in, he made so many slingers, 10 slingers. So these slingers, if he micros well, your Toxicate are going to be completely useless at this point. If you saw this army and you scouted it, right, if you scouted this army right here, which is slingers, spearmen, and wadgets, you only need to make one unit, which is the hoplite and some minotaurs, right? You make the hoplite, you would have easily decimated this force. That's the power of scouting, right? Now you're making a unit that he's going to blindly counter. So it's scouting is more valuable in more than just one way, right? You can see that this villager just finished this wall. So this is probably even more than 150 resources. A very expensive investment at this stage of the game. Later on it can pay off, but right now it's a little bit expensive. I wouldn't do it myself. Your opponent has a very strong eco. Look how much food he has, right? So it's going to be tough for you. You can also see like you have no idea what he's doing. You can see there's a back gold mine, so you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, there's nothing that I can attack into, which to that point you're kind of right. But if you know that you can attack into him, you should say, okay, I can't attack into you. Maybe I can just get more ahead. It looks like both of you guys are just sitting in your base and just massing a little bit of army. But if you want to be the one player to get an edge, this is what I would have done. For sure, I would have done this, right? So I would have taken my scout. I would have scouted his base. I would have seen, okay, he has a very small army. His army is only slingers, some spearmen. He can't really siege down my buildings. So instead of making this army right here, I would have started off by making a couple minotaurs, got the speed upgrade, right? Go and harass a little bit, just be a little bit annoying. But instead of all of this army, take another town center. Either maybe this one would have been better, and then you have an economic lead. And then you can make army after the fact, right? You don't need to make army right away. The other thing that you're doing that you definitely need to work on as well is you're going to need to spam out more military production, right? You don't have enough right now. You have 3 archery ranges and 1 Rax. It's definitely not enough, especially at 12 minutes into the game. You need to have like at least 3 of each at minimum, right? You guys are both doing a good job with your upgrades, but you really, like, once again, you really need to scout. I like this fortress placement. Not bad. Yeah, pretty good fortress placement. I like that. Let me explain why I like it, right? It protects this area, so your opponent can't just like run in here. It attacks this area, your opponent can't run in here. You're protecting two spots. And at the same time, you'll have a little bit of a corridor here. So if your opponent does want a siege, you can put your army right here. You're going to have protection from the fortress and the town center. So it's a pretty good spot overall, and I do like it. Um, but you know, this entire game, I'm just seeing like you guys are both just sitting in your base. The thing about RTS especially is it's a game of edges, right? Getting incremental advantages over your opponent. If you guys are both bottled up and playing your own game, you're not going to be able to have that ability to get those little incremental edges. It's all about incremental edges. So, for example, you can see that your opponent's playing passive. He didn't attack into you. You could have skipped a lot of these things. You could have skipped a lot of this army. You could have skipped the heavy upgrade. You would have been in Mythic Age by now. You would have definitely already been up. Like you could have been up at 11 minutes if you had scouted. That's how important it is, right? Um, Now you do have restoration and you do have bronze, so when it comes time to a fight, you're gonna do pretty well. But you you need see it's hard for me to even comment on this game because it's hard for me to know what the right moves is. You can't know what the right move is unless you know what your opponent is doing. Um, Now this is getting a little bit risky. You can see you're gathering really close to his base. You don't want to make your military production here, by the way. Sometimes it's okay, but it's kind of like a trap because it's an easy place for him to push into. Especially if he's making catapults and rams, this thing is going to go down really quickly. You want to probably make it right here, keep it a little bit safer. If you have excess wood, I would put it like around the fortress to reduce the surface area. I talked about this in my other video, but if you put a racks right here, for example, then spearmen can engage it. It just makes it a little bit harder. Actually, you kind of did it here, right? This is a very good archery range. Excellent positioning there. But you want to do more of that. This one is a little bit in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't really accomplish much. It kind of like, I guess it gives you a little bit of a protection on your Toxicate because you can't just run into them. But then again, he has slingers, so he can still outrange those Tox. So it's not going to really help too much. Um, so it really looks like you guys are just both just sitting in your base, not really doing anything. You have, I've said it so many times now, but you have to scout because it's really hard. If you don't want to scout, just do a little bit of poking, right? Maybe it's an APM limitation where you guys are not able to like scout effectively and manage your base and stuff in this game, in this level. So what I would do is just send a couple units, let them die, just throw them into the middle of his base, and then you're going to see it. Then you can counter his army. If he's making slingers, you don't make any more toxicity at that point, and you just make pure infantry, right? Now, look, you advance to the Mythic Age first. You have an advantage. You need to push your advantage. You need to attack, right? Because his army is just going to get melted with lightning storm. You need to be the one to push, so you can take advantage of the fact that you got to the Mythic Age 30 seconds faster. Um, so you don't want to be sitting here at this point. You want to be pushing. Now, you're not going to be able to like probably process all of these things. Look, he was able to. You could have probably stopped this, right? If you had your army positioned a little bit better, like maybe here, and if you were scouting what your opponent's doing. But now this is a hard place to push. You don't want to attack into this, okay? Don't attack into this. You want to attack right here, somewhere in his base or second TC or something. Don't attack into this. Two Migdal strongholds and a Citadel center, and if he's empowering it, you're not going to win that fight. So definitely take your eyes off of this. If they're on there, I would start pushing here. What I would do is I would probably just push in here. You're going to win the fight no matter what. You have 3 offensive god powers, right? Push in here, throw down a fortress, and then now you're going to cut off his reinforcements, right? For him to reinforce this, they're coming from there. And for these Migdal strongholds to reinforce here, they're coming from here. So if you put a barrier here, like a fortress right over here, it's going to cut off both reinforcements from both sides, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to play the smart game. Don't attack where he wants you to attack, and he definitely wants you to attack here because he's going to have pure reinforcements and he's going to have his production line coming directly in. Once again, I'm going to say it again. Fortress here, that blocks off his production here and here as well. You're going to have both sides. Now, you're in a little bit of trouble right now. Actually, you're not in trouble right now, but you can see that your army... Well, I'm not sure what you're doing here. Okay. Now, you didn't need to do bronze at this point. Yeah, you didn't really need to do bronze at this point because you were going to probably win the fight anyways. Yeah, you're spamming your god powers a little too soon. You should have waited a little bit. This is a little bit tricky for you to attack. Even if you get it down, you're going to take some... This is not, in my opinion, this is probably still going to work because you have bronze and 11 seconds left on bronze, but as soon as bronze runs out, these units are going to take a lot of damage, right? Let's see what happens here. The smarter option was just use Lightning Storm. Just use Lightning Storm, right? And don't use your bronze and don't use your restoration. See how the battle goes. Most likely you're going to win that fight. With Lightning Storm, you're easily going to win. So you don't need to use all your god powers. Save these ones up for the next fight. Because you're going to win one fight with Lightning Storm and then you can win the next fight with restoration and bronze. See, look. You took down the Citadel, which is okay, but now you're fighting under 2 Migdal Strongholds. That's 32.4 pierce damage, right? If you think about that, let's see what your army look. That's about 3 Toxicate. So it's 6 extra archers right here. Not only that, they're gonna be instant producing. They're gonna instantly producing units directly into the fight. So as soon as a new unit comes out, gonna come into the fight and help out, right? And on top of that, it's a garrison point too. So let's say you jump on his priest. Well, he's going to garrison in his Migdal and he's going to pop out from behind. Not a good place to fight. I told you, right? You have to just play the smarter game. Oops, sorry. At this point, you still have a small chance. I don't think it's... Actually, you have more than a small chance. You have a really good economy, actually. So you can still win this fight. Right? So let's see how many production buildings you have. That's not bad. You're doing good here. It's not over yet, right? I think you made a little bit of a blunder. Your biggest blunder, in my opinion, was wasting those 2 god powers when you didn't need to. And then also, once you know your opponent has Tornado, you need to start splitting your units apart. There's I can't show it to you here, but you can use spread formation on your units. You'll be able to see it in game. There'll be a spread formation option. So that's what you should have done, and then you should have saved these 2 for the next fight. Okay. Now you don't really want to make too many more. Well, I think it's okay, but he's making Axemen now. So yeah, so you're making the right army, I would say. This is what I would probably make too. I would just make Hoplite Toxicate, like you are right here. Alright, so you can easily still win this game, by the way. You just need to produce units faster, right? Make sure you even have good upgrades too. So does your opponent, though. This is all about just making as much army as possible. And I would like to see another restoration, so you're saving up, so that's good. Definitely get Fortified Town Center, which you did. Guess I just can't see it. Be careful with the Scarab's Poison. It's going to splash damage all of your units. Right, this is going to be cleaned up. Make sure you have Crenellations. Crenellations gives you bonus damage against cavalry units, which is good to have. And you definitely need ballistics. You forgot ballistics this game. Ballistics makes these archers so much better. If you're going to be making Toxicate, you want to rush out ballistics, right? It's one of the most upgrades to get on archer units. It's better than all of the weapon upgrades, in my opinion. Get this ASAP, right? Obviously, what this does is it makes your archers almost fire at, almost perfect accuracy. Right now, they're going to be missing a lot of shots, right? I don't know if you can see it here, but you see all these little missed archers, right? Whatever they're called. I forget. I'm having a brain fart right now. But they're going to be missing all their projectiles. That's the word. They're missing their projectiles, right? So you definitely want to get this. I mean, you still have a chance here. It's not over. I don't think I would go Medusas here. I would probably because I would rather go for Restoration. It's still relatively cheap. It's only 100 favor. You need a lot more archers, though. And I mean, I think a lot of people make Peltas, but you shouldn't be making Peltas unless you know you have decent micro, right? At this point, they're attacking infantry units. They're not attacking the back line. So I would probably just make mass Toxicity at this point. And you need to keep your army together. Yeah, you're making the wrong units here. You don't want to be making Peltas because you need to have good micro in order for this unit to work. You can't just A move, right? Even your opponent is kind of just A moving, which is not optimal. But then again, you got to remember your opponent has he has slings of the sun and he has electrum bullets, right? So his slingers can do well versus infantry too. But you got to be making hoplites at this point, so it's not really a big deal. But your army is just, it's not in position, right? You want to have these behind infantry, right? You don't want to have them on the front lines like this. These slingers are going to do better, I think, because they're fully upgraded, right? Your units are fully upgraded too, but he has these special upgrades, Slings of the Sun and Electrum Bullets. So your army is just going to keep losing this. And you can see, oh my god, you didn't get ballistics. I can see your projectiles are missing. You're missing a lot of projectiles as they walk by. You see how many projectiles you missed there? So one of the things you should have looked, and you just lost all your Peltas, right? These guys can kind of attack everything because they have these extra upgrades, but your Peltas, you need to be microing them. I mean, you still have a chance here. It's a little bit tougher now because you don't have a bank. I would definitely not be making Peltas right here. You should have just made Toxite. Toxite will clean up his Axeman. And no, don't fight this spot. You gotta be smart about where you fight, right? Like, this is not a good spot to fight because you're fighting under so much static D, right? 45 pierce damage a second, by the way. And this one is 35. It's so hard to win this fight. Static D got buffed in the last patch, right? So now the game is over. There's a lot of takeaways you can take from this. Firstly, the player you were playing is actually, in my opinion, he's a good player. He manages eco well. Look at this. Like, even some top players don't do this, right? So this guy is good. So there's no foul in losing this game. He's a very good player. But you got to remember, don't just fight. Don't When you're attacking into a position, think about the position that's most vulnerable for your opponent. This is the least vulnerable position for him because he has 3 defensive buildings here. This is a vulnerable position. If you took control of this area right here with the fortress, maybe a couple towers, you would have stopped all of this production, right? Now he can't reinforce this spot, and this spot can't reinforce this spot. You know what I mean? So like, you want to find those type of areas to attack. If you can't find those type of areas, you want to attack the eco. So you want to go attack gold mines. You want to see if there's any spots, like, I guess not really here in this map per se. Maybe this spot, but it's not the best spot to attack. I would have definitely just taken control of this position. That was your main going point. That's your main point right there. Another little tip that I can add as well is just throw down your dock. You get 2 free myth units, and then with those 2 free myth units, I'll just sit like right here and be a little bit annoying, right? They're gonna take some shots off. They're gonna waste a lot of his time. You can even throw down a siege ship to kind of make it a little bit annoying for him. So you might have to watch this back a few times, but the biggest takeaways, all right? These are here. I'm going to end the video with this. I went on for quite some time. Number 1, prioritize the most important things early on. You didn't prioritize your TC building. You did your TC, your Minotaurs, and your hoplites, or sorry, your military barracks, all at the same time. Don't do that. You need to prioritize the important things, which is town center first. If you want to go for Minotaurs, you can go for Minotaurs, but then you want to try to make use of them. Anytime you make a unit, right? Anytime anyone makes a unit, that's an opportunity cost. Because if this unit costs like 100 resources, let's say, like 4 or 5 of these can be a town center, right? Around that. If you factor in 5 or 6 of these rather would be a town center. So anytime you make a unit, you want to get some value out of the unit, right? Either the unit's going to be defending or the unit's going to be being on the offensive. You don't want to make a unit and just have him sit there and do nothing. That's the second point. Third point, and the most important point, is you need to scout. You need to scout what your opponent's doing. Once again, if he's on 2 town center, you can look to do damage. You have restoration, you have minotaurs, you have a very strong army. So you can look to poke and do damage. You want to get your minotaur upgrade if you can, because the 20% speed, you can just run around and do so much harassment with it. But scout. If you're also scouting for his military composition, if he's making slingers, you don't make Toxite, right? You just make more infantry. If he starts making axemen, then you can mix some slingers and some Toxite in there. But easy way to win a lot of games is just to counter his army. So you want to be looking at his composition. And last thing, when you're playing in the late game, you want, well, two things. First, make sure you overmake your military production. You want to have more than you need. It's way better to have more than less. Second thing, fight in strategical areas. This is the worst place to fight, right? I mentioned it. I'm not going to go over it again, but I mentioned it. This is the worst place to fight. The best place to fight is looking for value spots, right? You can automatically see here that this these two Migdals will reinforce this position, and these like 10 Raxes will reinforce this position. So if you can cut off this chain right here, they can't reinforce each other. I would have definitely put down a fortress right here, right? And then I would have pressured into this, right? That way these guys have to take fortress fire before they can fight. And you're going to be able to pick off so many units as they're leaving the production facilities. Eventually, what you can do is when you take control of this position, is you can make Petroboli or you can make Helipolis, and you can start sieging into this town center, right? By sieging into this town center, you're going to cut off all of his food production, right? A lot of his farms are right here, some of his farms are right here, but you can attack into both of them. You can attack here with the blessings of your fortress, and you can attack here, right? So you can throw in a couple units here, it's a couple units there. I would have split some units and started attacking this in the late game, but that was your key to victory. That split right there. Another thing, and I can go on forever, but I just don't want to make this video too long, is you probably want to just save up for restoration. Restoration is so cheap for what it does. It's almost as good as a flaming weapons, in my opinion. If you can fight a fight with restoration, you're almost guaranteed to win it, right? So if, especially as the army populations get bigger when you're in the late game, this becomes even more valuable. I would save for restoration, maybe 1 or 2 times, and then I would make myth units from there. But definitely want to take advantage of the second restoration. It's still, in my opinion, very cheap. All right, I'm losing my voice. I'm kind of tired. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions. Just message me on Discord. And for sure, send me another recorded game to watch next month. All right, take care. See you later. Bye.